Hello and welcome to Around the Ice here on Fantasy and Frames, a hockey podcast. Thanks everybody for joining us tonight. It's our last night of division breakdowns tonight. We've got the Pacific Division for you. Stick with us here on Around the Ice. Welcome, fellas. Thanks for joining me. Bryan, Toast Clark, and Aaron Tometich. Thanks for being here, guys. If you guys want to follow us on Twitter or the X at JT Orange for me, at Toast Clark for Toast, and at Titch4141 for Aaron. Also, go ahead and give a like and subscribe to Fantasy in Frames. All kinds of breakdown there for college football betting fan, NFL betting fan. If you play fantasy football, college fantasy football, all that stuff. We've got everything, even DFS shows a little bit of everything. We're the hockey side of Fantasy and Frames. And so we are getting pumped and ready here for hockey season, which, guys, is this week. We got our first couple of away games overseas this week before our official season starts on Tuesday. Make sure to join us next Tuesday. We're going to be doing a live show where we kind of are watching the opening night, the games, kind of breaking down everything, talking about the season, some bets we're liking, things that are just kind of going on in the league. And we'll be taking questions. If anybody's got questions about, start sits, guys that need to be looking for, waiver wires, those types of things, be sure to check in. Join us for that podcast. It should be a good time. We got some of the guys from the home league are coming out, and we're all going to get together and kind of watch everything kick off. Fellas, thanks for joining me tonight.
Yeah, JT, we'll have to figure out on Tuesday, on the true opening night, as you alluded to, how we're going to do this podcast because I know that we'll go ahead and do a live cast potentially, so we can maybe just have some fun with the listeners, watch the game. We're going to want to watch the game, so there's going to be maybe a little bit of less talking and actually on the podcast and actually debating about this and that, and more so maybe just a reaction to what's happening in front of us. We are going to do that here from my place. We're going to have a decent crowd here, so we're not quite sure exactly how it's all going to work. So bear with us. Regardless, this is the last night of our preseason hockey, and then we're going to move into the regular season next week, which really JT hit it on the head. We do a lot of gambling. We do a lot of fantasy discussion. And we also talk about what's going on the ice in the AHL. So really, I think we call that was our 3-on-3 power play. We called that in the past, and that'll probably be our format moving forward. So cannot wait, man. I cannot wait. We got the Devils in Buffalo playing.
Hopefully we didn't lose Toast here. His neighborhood is having some major issues with the internet as he got kicked off before the show started. There you go, Toast, you're back.
See me.
Hey, Toast, jump back into your thought there. We lost you just momentarily on your thought there. Internet kicked out on you just for a second.
Yeah. This is wrapping up the fact that they're overseas, like you were alluding to, and we're going to have fun with those Friday and Saturday games. So make sure to set your lineups Friday night. Most leagues will actually start their matchup for week 1 Friday, and it'll go through all of next week. So the 4th through the 13th. Now that's most leagues are going to do that. So I know in our home league, we will actually have rosters and pickups stop tomorrow night for free. Starting Thursday morning, Fab will count. So we'll have a reminder, but basically tomorrow is the last day to get everybody legal and make all those free pickups you want. And I think a lot of leagues are doing the same.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys got it, but Martini, who was a guest last 2 weeks ago, he's out there wheeling and dealing. Got an offer from him. So you got some of these guys are down to the last minute, knowing tomorrow's
Ah,
going to lock
nice.
up for the home league. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Maybe one or two moves. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah,
No.
that'd be nice. Let's get a little trading. If you guys are wondering about fantasy hockey,
I
if
like
you
it.
don't have your league set to go, we did do our dynasty home draft. We did have a breakdown of that 2 weeks ago. So go ahead and look at that again. And again, we're doing the Pacific Division breakdown this week, but we broke down every division. So go back, go to Fantasy and Frames on YouTube or on Spotify. Look those up, and you can find those. You can also find the Stew with JT Brew, although Around the Ice is also on there. So if you go and check out that on any of your podcast platforms, you can find that and listen to those and kind of catch up on what we talked about on those. So you guys ready to jump in tonight on our Pacific Division breakdown? Around the Ice Pacific Division. We see you got other Oilers. Uh, they're one of the main teams. We might as well just jump right off with the Oilers and get things started. Who wants to jump in and get us going with the team to kind of beat in this division?
Well, that's an easy yes for me. Edmonton all the way. Love the beard and the Draisaitl pick you got there. Not sure where you got that graphic, but that's a sharp looking beard on the German native. But he yeah, Edmonton. I mean, not going to kind of belabor it. What hasn't been said. They were within a whisker of the cup last year. Dropping three and then winning three, it could have gone either way. And I don't know if you guys have seen the Amazon show that features kind of behind the scenes with NHL. It's kind of a big deal.
Hmm.
It's very reminiscent of the Hard Knocks HBO documentary. Amazon, this is kind of Amazon's version of that, but it's hockey. And as we all know, NHL players are of a different ilk, I would say, rather than other professional athletes. They're kind of team first guys. Most of them, well, good portion of them are Canadian. Just different mindset. Like you don't see a lot of press, or you don't see a lot of ritzy glamour with hockey players. They aren't like that. But this series looks to bring that in, and I start with that because of the locker room speech with Connor McDavid, who by far is the best player in the NHL, and he's in there screaming at the guys. I don't know what game that was, but they have a really good teaser, so something really to check out. Really looking forward to that. I think they go. To follow some teams around. They got some footage from last year. They'll go into this year, but again, very very much like what Hard Knocks does for football, which I buy into it every year. Hard Knocks, obviously they had the Bears this year. We're all, we're close. It's close to Bears. So anyway, I'm hoping that does the same thing. So the Edmonton Oilers, outside of them getting this show, this Amazon show that we're looking forward to again, I think this is going to be your division winner. Overall, the Pacific Division, I think you have your biggest fall off the table. You got your top four kind of juggernauts. Although, and I'm not going to jump ahead here, but just to kind of the Kings with some bad news on Doughty maybe took them knocked them down a peg or two at the very least. But when you got your top four teams and your bottom four teams, there's a pretty big gap with the contenders. Again, as we go through, we'll kind of highlight that. But yeah, with Edmonton, I mean, really no real departures this offseason. Mostly what you see is what you get. They're key additions, though. I'll say this: in the free agent pool, they were the kind of the first ones to the table to stir it up, bringing Skinner and Arvidsson over to the team.
Hmm.
Ultimately, that may have cost them Broberg and Holloway. So I'll kind of back it up and say they didn't have many key departures other than Broberg and Holloway getting the offer sheets from St. Louis. And when we talked about the shitty Blues last time, well, we made note that hey, they stole these guys, and that's what happens. Yeah, it's
What a
just
bunch of turds.
they are. I mean, God, if St. Louis, just leave it to them. But that may make the open the way, or you're looking at the bottom six with Edmonton. A guy like Matthew Savoy, he was a 2022, I think, ninth or 10th overall pick. Lighting up the
Hmm.
WHL for a couple of years now. He's the last year 71 points in 34 games, so it does open a spot for him. You're going to need that because they're top heavy. Their first two lines are pretty incredible. Their power plays incredible. Defense is kind of shoring up. So The age-old question, is Skinner the right goalie? You know, they're always fighting that question. These are, you know, tired questions, but it he showed that he's a Stanley Cup playoff type goalie. He's a regular season type goalie. The only thing I'll say about Edmonton from a fantasy spin or from a betting spin is there's rumors out there all over TSN and Hockey News talking about some clock management with Draisaitl and McDavid. Could be just rumors. I mean, there's nothing to it. No team's going to come out and say, "Hey, we're not going to play our stars." I know Edmonton's in town January. I think they played the Blackhawks January. We had talked about going to that game. I definitely be there one way or the
Oh,
other.
we're going.
But these two guys, it's like the generational talent. They're not going to come out and say we're not going to play him, but it'll be interesting. We'll have to keep an eye on that time on ice and just compare it to their prior years just to see if there's any truth to that. That said, I don't see big glaring questions other than defensive depth, but you could really say that about any team. I think their goalie question's been answered. Best bets, even if they get fewer minutes, I'm going to totally use this. You came up with it, Toast, about the your big guys. You're going to bet either a goal or, well, maybe not a goal, but an assist per night, a goal per night, or a power play point. That'd be Leon and McDusty. That's almost a lock for at least one of your legs. If you're going to 3 leg, that's got to be one of the legs. One of those two guys. Go with your favorite one. So that would be my advice on the bet. And again, my prediction overall, they're going to take the Pacific. I love Vancouver. I just think a lot of guys on that team had career years last year. I don't think Vancouver will surprise anyone now, but Edmonton's just that constant. They're the standard in the Pacific, and they won't run with it. It'll be close. It'll be tightly contested, but ultimately, I have them coming out of the Pacific with the division win.
Yeah, one thing I'll add there, if I can, JT. And JT, I'm on a little bit of a delay here, so sorry if I jump in and,
no
and talk
problem.
over you
You
guys.
just jump in and you do it.
I'm literally on a delay, probably about 3-4 seconds, probably. This internet, I'll whip the internet. So, one thing that I think is really evident here is, JT, we'll get into the betting here. Maybe you can actually bring that up right now on DraftKings, but they ended up with 104 points last year. If we all remember right, they got off to that, maybe, what is it, 3-9, 3-9-1 start. I don't know, something like that. And also, McDavid actually missed a game or two. Again, it wasn't, he was supposed to be out for a long time and it wasn't, whatever, right? He's like, no, I'm not missing any games. I definitely do think that there was some injury issues there lingering. But when Skinner came on at the end of the year and really solidified that goalie position, they've been screwing with that forever, man. The Jack Campbell was a disaster. I mean, they're still actually holding on to that contract, I believe. I think they are anyway. They finally get Skinner, who is a young guy, to actually solidify that position. The Oilers have been looking for that forever. I think this is the first year they've actually won and they feel pretty good about their goalie position. They actually feel like it's solid and they're not going to have to scramble and actually find it. McDavid and Draisaitl both average about 21 minutes of time on ice. If there is any load management, I guarantee it's only going to be about a minute. And in hockey, that's a lot. Right.
Yeah.
So that's a lot. That's a shift left a game, right? Average over the entire 82 game schedule. But that wouldn't shy me away from actually always taking McDavid at 1 overall. We all know that that's an easy one. And then Draisaitl actually coming in as a top 10 fantasy option as well. So, but JT, what do you actually have on the DraftKings there?
Yeah, so I'm on FanDuel right now, pulling it up. So we've got to win the division. They're obviously the favorites at plus 120 to win the division. To win the President's Trophy is plus 600. They're right in the mix. The over-under points this year right now is sitting at 107.5. It's a minus 130 for the over, a plus 102 for the under. So obviously looking to push that at 107.5. What do you guys think? Are you guys on the over there? Do you think they get over that 107.5 even after the bad start last year? They got to 104.
Definitely.
I think so. I think with the bottom of this division, they're going to play some really bad teams a lot of times, and I think that pushes them. That gives them a competitive advantage over some of the other teams in the West that are going to be. Those points will count. Those points will count at the end of the year. I don't think. I'm surprised it's that low, actually. Yeah. So I'm going
Yeah,
over on
I just don't like the price on it, JT. The minus
that. Right.
130, right? So I'd rather actually maybe go ahead and just go with the win the division at the plus 120 if I'm going to pick one. But I wish that was like minus 110 instead of minus 130 for the 107. Obviously, Vegas believes they're going to go well over the 107.5 as well.
Yeah, that's one of those where I'd probably rather pick them to win the division and put that in a parlay with a few other teams to win their division is probably where I'd go on that. A couple player props for people looking for some season-long player props here. Connor McDavid to lead the league in shots is plus 2,200 right now. Hyman plus 8,000 to lead the league in shots on goal. So obviously those guys are a little bit down the list ways. Connor McDavid points right now we're sitting at 130 and a half over under it's minus 114 both ways. And Draisaitl points is 108 and a half. Also, over under is minus 114 right now.
Like the Draisaitl play on the over. I don't know about you, Aaron. That seems very, very doable for him.
Yeah, he got his money. He got his sheets, so he's not trying to do too much. So maybe that'll relax him. It'll put in 110. The McDavid, 130 points. That's a lot of points.
I mean, he's an absolute stud, but that's a lot of points, right? You can't have anything go wrong. You can't have any injuries.
Right.
That one makes it real tough to bet that. But the Vegas is trying to force everyone to take it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the shots on goal for McDavid is a no-go. Last year, 342 shots on goal, and I don't know what he actually had in his 60-goal season the year before, but that's going to go to Nathan McKinnon, or that's actually going to go to Austin Matthews. So McDavid is not going to have the most shots on goal in the league.
Yeah, definitely take one of those two over him for sure.
Yep, and right now they are the favorites for the President's Trophy to have the best record in the league. The plus 600 currently, they're just ahead of the Colorado Avalanche at plus 900 and the Dallas Stars at 950 and the Florida Panthers at plus 1,000. So obviously people are really liking them, thinking they're going to be good this year. So kind of the top ones. Guys, we do have a trade question here. Before we get into the next team, let's pull this up here. Let's take a look at it. This one's from Outer Rhythm Fantasy. Thank you very much for the trade question. This is a keeper league, fellas. Trade, he says, I have Nylander. Do you trade Nylander for Jason Robertson? If so, who wins this trade? This is a point-setting league. A little tough if we don't know exactly what the points are, but we're going to assume it's kind of like typical 3 points per goal, point and a half per assist. Are you guys know I'm a Nylander guy. I've always been a Nylander guy. Who are you guys? Would you guys rather have make this trade for Robertson and keep Robertson, or would you rather keep William Nylander?
I'll let you go first, Aaron, if you have a thought.
Right.
I have
one. Yeah. So I definitely do. So in our draft, Nylander went just before Robertson did. I was looking right at this. It's a keeper league, and it was the end of the second round. If by some miracle JT skipped on Nylander, I was going to go Nylander, and that's just because of the changes that I saw with Toronto. I think Robertson had an off year because he put up he flirted with 50 goals the 2 years before then. So it's the inconsistency with Robertson. So if I'm you, I'm hanging on to Nylander, but I like what he did. He's going to be second line center. He's going to have a lot more responsibility on that team, but I think power play he'll be with Marner and Matthews, and he's going to really hit his next level with those two guys on the same line on PP1.
Yeah, and I'm agreeing with you, Aaron, as well. I'm going Nylander all day long on that one, especially if it's a redraft league, a non-keeper league, and you don't really have everything set equal where positions aren't really a concern either, right? Where you're just saying player for player, head-to-head points league. And the reason I say that is because Nylander will actually While Dallas actually the line mates are no slouch themselves, obviously with Wyatt Johnson and Rupe Hintz as well, and they got an unbelievably deep team. The line mates Toronto are even that much better, and Nylander is going to have 300 shots on goal every year. You know that's going to happen. He's proven that actually happen. I think it's more so of a plug and play where Robertson, he showed that 2 years ago with his breakout season with 109 points, 46 goals, 63 assists, but most importantly, 313 shots. What concerns me is the year before that, 220, and the year after that, 231. You need guys that actually shoot the puck. And you really wonder, too, what would the loss of Joe Pavelski to retirement really going to do? So there's a little bit of an unknown there. I feel a little bit more comfortable with Nylander, especially in a redraft league.
Yeah, this is keeper. So to me, unless you're in a league that you're keeping him where you drafted him in the round you drafted him, somehow you got Robertson later, where he's a better round value. For me, I'm taking Nylander. But if for some reason, like our keeper league used to work, is you got to keep the guy in the round you drafted him. So if you're able to get Robertson later, earlier in his career, and be able to keep him, then I can see that kind of pushing the value that direction. We got one back from Out of Rhythm here. He says, he must change the trade on me. He had Mikko written in last night for Nylander. Okay, so
Well,
how would that change things for you guys? Would you guys go Mikko over Nylander? Because that's it's a little bit of a different push there.
that's a tough one. It comes down to preference, in my opinion. They're about the same age as well. And Ranton is not going anywhere. I know the rumor is and this and that. He's not going anywhere. He's staying in Colorado. He's actually going to be there with McKinnon as well. And the same for Nylander, actually playing with Matthews as well. They're both had their long-term contracts. This is more of an even, really trade. So to me, it just comes down to personal preference on who do you like better. Because I'm not really sure that anybody's quote unquote winning unless there comes down to a game of chance.
Yeah. The only thing I'll say, again, with Nylander, with his ice time, does it go down? Does it go up with him playing, going back to his center, his more natural position? Whereas you've got Rantanen out there, line one. I might lean towards Rantanen on that because he's going to be out there with Drouin, who's a pass first guy, and McKinnon, who shoots a ton, but still it's Nathan McKinnon. So I'm gonna look at line mate. I might lean towards Rantanen on that one over Nylander.
Yeah, and Aaron, I think the fantasy community would agree with you on that, and the ADP for sure agrees with you on that, right? So Mikko Rantanen's definitely probably ADP. I'm guessing 11, 10, 11, somewhere around there, and Nylander's probably 18, 19, somewhere around there on average. So everybody feels that way, right? So it may just come down to personal preference again, but they're statistic wise, they're pretty close. Is Rantanen the better player right now in a better situation, given the fact that he has McCarr and McKinnon with him as well, and then you get a healthy Landeskog back, hopefully, probably in a better situation. But it's very close, right? Because you're playing with Austin Matthews as well for Nylander. So just the fact that Rantanen is actually tied to the hip with McKinnon probably gives him the slight edge, right? But it's close.
Yeah.
I got a couple special bets I found here. They got what's called a star special on FanDuel. So I got a couple Connor McDavid ones. I want to see if you guys would take any of these. I brought some out last show and you guys were like, "Ooh, I don't think I want any of those." Let me see if you want any of these. Connor McDavid to record 20 plus points in the first 10 games plus 160. Is that someone to interest you, or it's not high enough return on you to jump on that one?
His start was so slow. But again, there was injury. They went all the way to the cup. I don't think that's enough. That's not high enough. 250 and more, and I'd probably do it. I'd probably sprinkle a bet on that if it's plus 250.
Right now, give me a second here, JT. I actually almost have it brought up. I would have to look at the schedule. I mean, because as Aaron said, man, there are some bottom feeder teams there in the Pacific Division. And it depends on kind of where they're actually starting off at, where they're going here. I see they're actually going At home versus Winnipeg. At home, and Winnipeg, they got Connor Hellebuck, and they actually have a very good first line. But after that, they're just not a very good, deep team. You actually have Chicago at home. They'll win that game. They'll put up a lot of points. Again, Chicago's improved, but not so much. Calgary at home. And in Philadelphia, at actually home as well. As good as Philly is actually improved, there's still some improvement actually going on there. I would actually predict to say right now in those first 4 games, he's probably going to have 11 to 12 points. So then you're actually looking at 6 more games here. He needs 8. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
Okay, a couple more for you guys. Connor McDavid to score 50 goals and record 100 assists, plus 400. So that gets him over his 130. You got to get 50 goals and 100 assists allowed, but it's plus 400 as opposed to the minus 114 for him to score 130 plus points. Is the 400 worth it? Is it worth taking a shot on the 400? It's not big enough for you.
Well, my heart says yes because I just drafted him, but my brain says no because it was a struggle for him to get 100 assists last year, and I don't think any point goal. I don't even think that occurs to the guy. He's going to do it because he is who he is, but he's playoff mode. He's cup mode. He's not going to go and stretch it for 100 assists. He's not going to go for any of that. And he's on again, off again with the goals. Shoot first, pass first guy. So he's too back and forth on that. To do them both in the same year would be. I would love it because I would be cashing a check at the end of the year, but I just don't see it happening. Even if those are great odds. I mean, I like the plus 500, but not even for a buck.
And Aaron, I will just say this. I know we'll spend more time on Edmonton than the other teams, okay? Because there's a lot to.
Oh yeah, there's San Jose and Anaheim. There's really
But you hit it on the head where that's not his goal. His goal now is like he's accomplished everything there's accomplished in this league. He's going to end up going down as one of the top 10 players that ever played this game. The only thing standing in his way is actually winning cups. And I think that right now he's focused on doing that and making sure that that's his lasting legacy. And whether he does it in Edmonton, which he's going to have to do it in Edmonton, or anywhere else, I mean, that's what he's going to remember. So now I will tell you, if that was his goal going into the season, 50 and 100, he would do it. Yeah. Because he can do that. He can do that. And I would actually be like, if that was his goal, I'd be like, well, he's going to do it. But that's definitely not going to be his emphasis.
Here's my probably favorite one if I was going to jump in on one of these toasts. And this goes back to what you were saying about the beginning of the season schedule. McDavid to get 1 plus point in each of his first 10 games is plus 450.
Geez.
So he's got to get 1 point in each of the first 10 games.
So he's going to do it in the first 4 because he's at home.
I would jump on for plus 450. If I could jump on one, that's the one I would be leaning on.
So there's one game. There's one game, the October 19th game at Dallas. But really, you look at those first 4 games at home, he will record a point at home in every one of those games. He will actually record a point versus Carolina and at Pittsburgh at actually home as well. And in the end, those last game 9 and 10 at Detroit, at Columbus, those are teams he's going to score against those teams. Nashville, normally you would say, oh my gosh, like, I don't know, that they're a defensive minded team. That's a team that actually likes to quote unquote run now. All right. I mean, they're a more fast team up and down the ice. They're going to want to push the puck. I like him there. It's going to be at Dallas Saturday, October 19th at 3 p.m. That'll be the only game in the event that's going to be in jeopardy. If not, then yeah, I like him for a point in the first 10 games.
That sounds like a fun bet.
I know. I kind of like it. I think I'm going to jump on that one, right?
I might as well. I'm doubling down on the year of McDavid. So yeah.
And hell with it. Let's just make this a Edmonton podcast. I mean,
especially if you got him on the team, right, Aaron? If you got him on your team, you might as well just double down. You want the points and everything else. This is an interesting one. This is a huge odds. Long, but this is the last one here.
No, let's keep going. Yeah,
they got Connor McDavid to score 1 goal in each of the first 5 games, plus 4,100.
Hey, go ahead and find some coins in your couch cushion. Underneath the front seat of your car. Go ahead and put $5 down on it. To actually, go ahead and Put $5 down on it. It's fine. If anybody can do it, it's him. But that's obviously the odds speak for themselves. That's probably not going to happen. If anybody can do it, it's McDavid. So, but the only reason I would say that's even remotely possible, 4 home games to start the season.
That's kind of what I was looking at. I was like, he's just gonna have 1 goal in each of the first 5 games at 4,100. Now, if that was plus 500, I'd be like, I don't know if I love that.
But here's
4,100. I do kind of like those.
Here's
odds.
the deal. We know JT.
You know me. I love
as great as McDavid is. He is a distributor first.
Yep.
I mean, he looks to get his teammates involved. He is a pass first. It's amazing he's a pass first player and he scores the amount of goals he does because he also can take it end to end and actually make these crazy goals. And he's so unbelievable. He's so much faster than anybody else, but he is a pass first type of guy. He's setting his teammates up if you actually watch a ton of Edmonton games. So the odds that happen are very slim.
Toast, to kind of give the listeners an idea of where you're coming from on that pass first. Nathan McKinnon, who's a assist machine as well, same bet is plus 47 for him for 1 goal in each first game. But Austin Matthews for Toronto plus 1,800.
Yeah.
Because he's a shooter. He's a goal shooter first. So his 1 goal in each of the first 5 games is plus 1,800 for him. So you can see the big difference there on that one. So just I had some fun bets. Just want to throw those out to you guys. Hey, let's move on to Vancouver. Let's see what we got on the up there in the West, the Canucks.
Yeah, I'll take Vancouver here. They won this division last year, 109 points. All right. So do I think they're going to win the division this year? No. But I think they'll get second place. Again, the division, in my mind, there's a couple good teams, but then you have a couple mediocre teams and you have some bad teams. So I think the Pacific Division, that's why it's really, if you want to go ahead and bet the overs for Vancouver and Edmonton on the points this year, like JT said, parlay them together if you actually can. That would be amazing to go 1-2. I'm not really sure there's a book out there that's going to do that. But this is a loaded team. They're a loaded fantasy team. But they're a team that needs a healthy Patrick Demko. And he's got this really unique injury. Let's just leave it at that. It's very, very unique, saying that no other hockey player or goalie that they know of had this type of injury before, which is really interesting to hear. So, but they actually need him in order to get over that 105, 107, 108 points that you really expect out of them. If they don't have Demko, that is a concern, man, because Demko's so good. But my key question for this team this year is can Brock Besser really repeat what he did last year? And last year, he had his breakout season. I think he's 26, 27. And you guys have listened to podcasts all the time. I always say 26, 27, somewhere around there. But, well, I'm saying it again, 26, 27, somewhere around there. I think he's one or the other. But he had 40 goals, 33 assists, 73 points last year. That's a 20-point increase from what we're actually normally seeing from Brock Besser. But we've never seen Brock Besser actually play with the confidence he actually did last year. He's also got line 1 secured, power play 1 secured, and guess what? This is a contract year for Besser as well. So JT, I want you to get the old betting machine out here, okay? So we can go ahead and take a look and see and we'll talk about this. I'll keep talking about it. You look that up though. What would be the over under for Besser points this year? Because I would expect, let's hope it's at 70. 69 and a half, 70, somewhere around there. But let's hope. Let me keep talking about a couple more things here, and then you can look that up.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find his overall points if that's actually available right now. Right now they are plus 2,100 on the President's Trophy division. They're actually third in the division, plus 440 to win the division, and the over/under point total for Vancouver right now is 97.5. Over is minus 115 for that.
Yeah, so I think the 97.5, that's crazy. It has to be for the health of Patrick Demko right now in the unknown. If it wasn't for that, they're going to go over the 97.5. Again, they're in the same boat that Edmonton is, where look at their division, and their division's got some major, major concerns anyway after the first 3 teams. After that, it's like, who knows at that point. So I love the over 97.5 if Demko does not have a serious injury. But I'm not going to talk too much about their fantasy pieces because we understand who they have. They have Miller, who is a Banger's league dream. Okay. He does every single thing you'd actually want to do. And you got Besser, you got Pedersen, and we talked about his playoff struggles as well. Maybe he'll actually learn from them. He's still very, very young, 25, 26 years old. And then Quinn Hughes. Quinn Hughes is an assist machine. So speaking of assist machine, the bets I actually love coming into this season here on any given game where they're actually playing some of those bottom feeder teams in the Pacific Division, I love actually parlaying JT Miller and Quinn Hughes for an assist in the same game. And you can probably get that somewhere in the neighborhood of around plus 150. And you got to think if they're playing the likes of San Jose or even Calgary this year, who's going to be just god awful. I mean, that's going to be, especially if they're at home, that's going to be pretty easy money on most nights. They're going to actually have power play opportunities. They're going to be tagged up with one another, and they get so many assists. And Miller's on almost every single play. Hughes gets close to 80 assists a year. So I love parlaying those guys together. I would almost play that as much as you possibly can against teams that are lopsided in that matchup.
Toast, I've got your Brock Besser points totals, and you want
I
me to
said
run down the
69.
list?
I said 69.5. What's it at, JT?
Okay, so they've got it. The way they've got it separated is in blocks here currently on FanDuel. So they've got 30 plus goals is minus 200 currently.
No.
So obviously, don't love the odds on that. We're staying away from that. Is over under points total is if you go for 60 points in the regular season, it's minus 185 currently. If you can get him at plus 70, it's plus 155, and 80 points regular season is plus 420.
I love the 70 points, especially in a contract year, and especially given his deployment, and especially the fact that he's found his stride from last year. Let's hope this is not just, oh my gosh, maybe a Robertson year from 2 years ago, right? Let's hope it's not that. But I have a hard time believing that it's not that because, again, he did it in the year before his contract season. I just think he actually found something. Found a lot of confidence here. I know he actually lost his dad. I remember that from last year. He was playing inspirational hockey. They're very, very close, of course, as most people are with their fathers. So I think 70 points is barring injury is a pretty sure thing. And it actually plus 150 or 160, whatever you said. I think that is barring injury. That's about as that's in the bank. That's in the bank, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You guys ready to move on to Vegas? Let's see what the Golden Knights got to say about this year. What do you guys think? This team bouncing back in 2024, 2025?
Well, I tell you what, this is one of the teams that I agreed to take as well. So, Aaron, you'll have a couple in a row. I'll go ahead and take this one again here. But Vegas, this is a team who has actually lost a lot of talent, in my opinion, in the last couple of years. And they're old. They have a lot of churning over the roster. And then not really have a whole lot left in the pipeline there as well. But the funny thing about Vegas is this, is if you look at the inception of when Vegas actually came in the league in 2017, 2018, when they played a full season, again, minus the COVID years of 19 and 20, whatever the hell it was, they've never scored less than 93 points in a full regular season. This year, the money's actually, I'm hoping it should be under 89.5, so under 90 points. And that should be close to even money. I do not believe in this team. And the main reason being, can a line one of, let's say, Barbashev, maybe I just hate him because he's an ex-Blue. I don't know. He'll bang the shit out of people, really, really good. Actually, I'm impressed with Barbashev. He's kind of a hidden gem. But then Olofsson as well, that actually came over from Buffalo.
Yeah.
Jack Eichel has to stay healthy. The last 4 years, Eichel, 21 games played, 34 games played, 67 and 63. If Eichel is on the shelf for at least 20 games, this team is going nowhere, man. Nowhere at all. They have an old second line, very, very old second line. They got Thomas Hertl that paying, I think, 8.14. I know that, JT, because we actually own him in our league. Center in the third line as well. You would think, oh, they're distributing the lines. It's a pretty deep team. This is not a very good team, in my opinion. But I say that, and again, but what do the Golden Knights do every year? they win. They got a winning culture. They got a winning front office, and they happen to just get the most out of their roster every year. But I just don't. That has to run out at some point. I just don't believe in this team. They don't have it from top to bottom. They're too unbelievably old, and the young talent they actually have isn't very impressive at all. They're definitely going to finish fourth in a specific division, just based on name and recognition alone. They're going to miss the playoffs. And again, JT, kick it to me right now. Let's say they're actually under 89.5 points. Is that the mark?
You are not going to believe this, Toast. And I
89
think
and a half?
Jamie, thanks for Jamie jumping in and saying, hey, guys, I'm here for the hockey fights. We are as well. We love to see hockey fights. Thanks, Jamie, for jumping in again. You're not going to believe this, Toast.
I haven't looked at anything.
99 and a half.
No, that's
over,
an under.
Over is minus 111. Under minus 115. I think we have ourselves our first one of our first unders of the year.
They're not scoring 100 points. And now Eichel
there's another one
would have to be healthy all year.
Playoffs.
Eichel would actually have to go crazy. Okay.
Playoffs or no playoffs, Toast. No playoffs plus 250 makes the playoffs minus 340.
I would rather just go ahead and hitch my wagon to the under 99.5 and go bigger, because they're not scoring 100 points this year. Yeah. It's not happening. So this is going to be where they realize that, hey, we have a winning culture here in this team. We know what it takes. Actually, you've seen that, right? You've seen that they've done more with less a lot of times, or not, but not with this team. And again, you hitch your team to Jack Eichel, who is an unbelievable talent. But he will miss 20 to 25 games. If he doesn't, and he actually plays all 80 or plus, then I may eat my words. But he has not shown that ability to be able to do that. I think, and more so, he's going to try to actually carry the team more often, and that's even going to put more wear and tear on the body and more chance for injury. I just don't see a winning formula here.
So Eichel and Hurdle, it's like they've always had enough talent, but it always seemed like this team has gelled better than other teams. Like all these guys have just played so well together. They've so many changes for this team. I think, is that the thing that's going to kill them? Because I feel like even when they've not had as much talent as other teams, they've always seemed like they've really fit well together and been, that consummate team where they're all playing for each other. It seems like there's just too much turnover now to carry that over. Is that that's what you're thinking with this team this year?
Yeah. My concern is Mark Stone will be injured 40 games. William Karlsson has not actually shown that, to be injury prone, but nevertheless much older. Victor Olofsson, who's actually, he had some good years in Buffalo, but now we can consider him, quote unquote, a journeyman. Barbashev, again, a nice piece, but on a good team, Barbashev's actually on a good team. Put him on Dallas. He's a third line left winger, and he's actually playing first line. And then they got some guy named Dorfayev, or again, if I was in a lot of deep leagues, which I am, I still don't know who the hell that is. And then the third line, Nick Roy, you got Alexander Holtz, whatever. But again, this is a team. They'll outwork most of their teams, right? They'll stay in most games, but they can't sustain that, especially with the expected injuries they're going to have this year. There's no chance in hell they're getting over 100 points. Not happening.
Yeah. They grind all their games out. They win everything 2-1. Their defense, they have, I don't know, sizes. I don't have heights and weights for all
great defense. They're just old.
They got big boys on there, but a cup, then running up against Dallas, and they knocked the shit out of each other last year's. All that wears and tears, and then you add the age to it. And their magic formula is time is almost expired on those older guys.
I know we weren't happy when Dallas got Vegas in the playoffs last year, because we were all on Dallas and we're like, no, Vegas is going to beat them up. This is going to kill us, and it's exactly what happened. They went out there and they beat them up, and they were just worn out for the rest of the playoffs.
They did.
Aaron, who do you want to jump on next here in the Pacific Division?
Let me take a look. I think our next one. Now we've talked about these two, and again, I don't know if you said this or not, Toast, or what your thoughts. I think they'll make the playoffs. I like the under on that 99 for sure, but I just think that there's enough. Again, I've kind of talked about the parity here, so I'm going to throw in one of these bottom feeder teams to show you who they're up against and why a team like Vegas that we just kind of shit on, why they may make the playoffs or they may be a little higher in the division, and that's Anaheim. I mean, I like what Anaheim's done. I'll start there. Start with a positive, end with a negative. But I like what Verbeek's done with this team. They've not been shy about reloading. This isn't a working um, hey, let's remain competitive. This has been a complete rebuild, tear it down, burn it. They had some very, very competitive teams. The Hawks always went up against them in all those cup runs. They'd always have to go through Anaheim at some point. So they've had some success, some recent success in the last 10, 12 years. And then again, they burned it down and now they're building it up. So this will be a fun team to watch just from the youth factor. Cutter Gauthier, possibly could be in the conversation for the Calder. So, won't. But again, when you look at it team wise, they're not going to go anywhere. They didn't really have any big departures this year. No real additions. Didn't play in the free agent market. They're totally committed to this rebuild. Um, the one thing I'll throw out for in terms of bets over the year, nothing on the future bets. Don't touch them because again you look at all these kids and then all of a sudden they pull a Philadelphia Flyers and they're a point or two outside of the playoffs. So I'm not going to touch them on, give them a shit record or anything like that. You just never know. There's always that wild card factor. But the bet I like to watch for these guys is always playing the over whenever they have somebody in town. So you're going to have your big guns, your Edmonton Oilers, your Vancouver Canucks. They're going to play Anaheim. What is it, 6-8 times, whatever it is. Anaheim gives up a hell of a lot of goals. Defense isn't anywhere near where it needs to be for any kind of serious contention. Goaltender, maybe Dolston's the Dostal, excuse me, is the goalie of the future, but they're still dicking around with Gibson. He's got 3 years left on his contract, so who knows who's going to play in net. Last year they gave up 293 goals. The year before that they gave up 335, which was worst in the league. So again, I look at the over on that because their penalty kill 31st last year. So they Vegas beats everybody 2-1. They lose to everybody 8-6. So bet the overs on those Anaheim games or take a look at that matchup, especially being in the Pacific Division. I have them definitely missing the playoffs. And then the other thing too, I started with, hey, I like how the rebuilding. Pat Verbeek, love him or hate him as a GM, hated him as a player. This guy's the biggest turd out there. He was just the biggest rat. I couldn't stand him in his playing days. I don't care if he was with Minnesota. He was one of those journeymen, but he would just get under my skin. Anytime the Hawks, even if the Hawks weren't playing him, I did nothing but root against this guy. But he's taken back-to-back drafts. Leo Carlson last year should have been the clear number 2 behind Bedard. Or was on, or I'm sorry, Fantilli. Fantilli was the clear number 2 on most people's list. He took Leo Carlson with the 2nd overall pick. But Leo Carlson was actually number 4 or 5 on most lists, most and again, so it's kind of like, whoa, okay. He saw something he liked, and he's going to be a fabulous player. He might have made the right decision, but he's all risk or reward for this guy. Now that. And then he doubled down this year on this last draft with Beckett Seneke, who was like top 10 for most, or not even top 10 for most lists. Demidov, Lidstrom, again, all strong rated ahead. Now they had the 3rd overall pick in this past draft, but either he's very right or he's very wrong. There's going to be no gray area. He either missed out on some of these other guys that were on the draft list, or he's going to shock the world. And both of these guys that he took, Carlson and Seneke, there's these big-bodied forwards. So goes back to his playing days when those were the guys that were making they were cashing the checks. 6'2", 6'3", 190 pounds. Those old school forwards back in the Eric Lindros era when Verbeek played. So I don't know if he's got something for these bigger kind of body guys, but I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, I like to watch them. I'll definitely tune in because they got some guys in the pipeline that are finally coming up. Defense, of course, I mentioned him before. Cutter Gauthier, he's going to be fun to watch, a dynamic player. But yeah, they're out. They're fodder for the rest of the Pacific. Just bet the over when these guys show up in town.
Yeah, a
And-
couple bets. I'll jump in here and let you kind of know to say kind of what Aaron was saying. Cutter Gauthier right now, rookie season goal leader. He's third best odds right now at plus 500. If you're an Anaheim guy and you want to get crazy, he's at plus 500 right now. Regular season rookie point leader. He's fifth on that list at plus 700. Obviously, there's not a whole lot of other guys you want to get out there and jump on individual bets. I'm guessing over under right now is 72.5 points. Overs plus 100. Under is minus 128. And for them to finish with the worst record in the league, they have the third best odds. You hate to say best odds to have the worst record, but it is third best odds at plus 600. And to tell you how much they're out of it for the division is plus 11,000 for them to win the division.
I won't keep going on this too much longer. How we will a couple of these teams as well, Aaron. We're not going to talk about a few of these teams that long, but it'll be. I would hope that the Leo Carlson load management deal, to whatever the hell they were doing last year with him, is over. I don't know if you guys remember that or not, but basically he would actually play a game and he'd be off 2 games. Play a game, be off 2 games. Obviously, they weren't trying to win, but now it's time for him. Line 1, power play 1, your top line center. I would assume that's done. And then I did not know it. I just looked it up here now that John Gibson had an appendectomy a week ago. He is on the shelf for 3 to 6 weeks, which normally that would actually take 3 to 6 weeks, but with a goalie, 3 to 6 weeks. So Dostal is going to, he's going to have a workload here. Even more reason for them to actually maybe go underneath that 72.5.
I've got it, and I'm just going to bring him up because he's on my fantasy team in our home league. Mason McTavish. Let's talk about a couple bets for him real quick and see what you guys like or not. Right now, 20 plus regular season goals minus 330. So they're loving him to get over that 20 plus. I love to go over, but I'm not putting minus 330 on that one. To look at a couple other bets for him as possible ones. They've got him over 50 plus regular season points at minus 140 and 60 plus regular season points at plus 210. Do we think McTavish can get there?
You said 60?
60 is plus 210. 50 is minus 140 for the season. And you can get 30 regular season. So this is an interesting one. This is the one that kind of jumped out at me. That's why I brought him up. 20 plus regular season goals was minus 330. But 30 regular season goals plus 650. Obviously, they think he can get over 20. Can he get up to that 30 mark and get to 650?
Not a
plus
chance.
650.
Not a chance. He don't
Nope.
shoot the puck enough. So last 2 years, 161 shots on goal, 130 shots on goal, and you're actually probably shooting an average, league average anyway, between those 2 seasons at 10.6 and 14.6 on the shots. That's right where you'd expect someone around 12, 13%. That's who he is. So basically, he's been 17 goals and 19 goals the last 2 seasons. I know that Vetrano actually shoots a lot. I think he shoots a lot anyway. I'm almost positive he actually does. 260 shots on goal he's projected for this year. He doesn't shoot enough. So I'm definitely going the under on the 30. And that's not even close, I don't think.
I'm intrigued by the 60 points though. What was the over on that? Did you say 210?
So if you got 60 plus points, it was plus 210.
I might take that. I think
taking it
60 he'll
over.
get.
That's what I'm saying. They take over in a lot of games. We got a lot of high scoring games. Can he put in 20, 25 goals and get you 40 assists? 45
With those
assists,
shooters,
get you over?
Everest, Troy Terry, let's not forget about him. You got Gauthier, you got Vetrano. I love that call out. Yeah, I think he in the assists he can do it. I think that's not bad. That's not bad.
Yeah, I agree.
Just interesting. Wanted to see what you fellas kind of thought about him. He was a late pick for me in our dynasty home
Oh,
league
great
draft.
dynasty pick.
I
Great
loved him in the
pick.
dynasty. He's going to give me some points here and there. I just kind of wanted. I saw some of the season long bets. I want to see what you fellas thought about that. Next up, what's who we got next, fellas?
I'll jump right into San Jose because everything I just said about Anaheim's gonna get us through San Jose.
You're just like repeat, just repeat.
Complete rebuild, but I respect it. I like. It'll be fun to watch Will Smith. It'll be fun to watch Max Celebrini. They brought in Toffoli, Barclay Goodrow, Cody Ceci. So they got some NHL guys, and I was just talking to actually was talking to Jensen, one of our home league guys. I said, imagine if Taylor Hall hadn't gotten hurt, and Bedard had NHL talent around him. Like they're bringing in NHL talent around these two young bucks, and I kind of like that. So it'll be fun to watch. They're not as far out or far away as I think some people think. They've got their franchise goalie, or supposedly that's who it is. We'll see. I mean, nobody's seen this guy play, Askarov, but if he's their franchise goalie, I'd even put him a step ahead of Anaheim, even though probably the rest of the sheet, the Anaheim's a little bit ahead of them. They're going to miss the playoffs, but the two bets and what I'll finish up here with San Jose is Celebrini's at plus. Well, this is on DraftKings, so I don't know what FanDuel's got, but Calder, Michkov, since his freaking on fire preseason here, he's now favorite for Calder, but Celebrini's plus 450. Will Smith is plus 1200. I'm going Will Smith. I'm going to say the quiet guy, the guy that's not getting the headlines. Just sprinkle it. Just sprinkle that bet a little bit, and just fingers crossed he can pull that off. But they'll get bounced out of the playoffs. Look at the overs. They give up a ton of goals, and yeah, they're still rebuilt.
To add into that Will Smith bets, if you think he could lead all rookies in goal scoring, he's plus 1,900 for all rookies goal scoring. Rookie points, he right now is plus 700 to lead all rookies in points. If you kind of like him to win the rookie of the year, maybe those are ones you want to consider. Over under right now for San Jose is 64.5.
Yeah, the Will Smith goals is a no-go for me, and the reason being is the fact that just doesn't have the experience and supporting cast around him. When you actually go right down the middle on your first two lines, 18 years old and 19 years old, they got all the talent in the world. They really, really do. And you actually even throw William Eklund in there as well. I mean, he's got a lot of. They're just so young. They're gonna take big lumps. I know they actually brought a guy like CC in. Actually, honestly, leadership in the locker room and actually just some protection on the back end, so they can give them a chance to at least try to be in some games. But they're not going to be. Askarov is a great get, man. I mean, that's that was awesome. That was absolutely awesome for the get. But tell me the last time actually an NHL team is actually projected for their top line center and their second line center at 18 and 19 years old. It's been a minute. So they're going to take some lumps. There's no doubt. I just don't see them having over the again leading the league and rookie goals and stuff like that when it's going to be as if you're actually watching a rookie quarterback in the NFL actually saying, you know what, you're going to go ahead and have 3,500 yards in passing. Just really, really difficult. I just don't see it.
This is a team that's had 47 points last year. They're over under 64.5.
You got to go under again.
You got to hammer the under, right? Yeah. If you're going to do anything, you got to hammer on it. Right now, they are plus 230 to have the worst record in the NHL.
They'll get another lottery ball.
They're the favorite right now at plus 230. I think you got to hammer that under 64. I mean, 17, 18 point increase over last year, and they're just going younger, and they got rid of. I think you got to hammer that under.
Yep, agree.
All right, fellas, we're coming up on the hour, but we'll keep moving through here and finish out this Pacific Division. Who we got next on the list here?
I'm gonna stay with some shit teams here, and we'll go ahead and
Might as well.
go.
Hey, we're gonna pile it on. Let's just pile it on, right?
Yeah,
Let's keep
and
going. Let's keep
I'm
it
gonna
going.
I'm gonna go quickly through the Calgary Flames. And last year they were 81 points. I'm not sure how the hell they even got 81 points last year. That was good enough for fifth in the Pacific. This is not a strong team, and they have even less strong fantasy options. The key question for me, Jonathan Huberdeau. That was a question last year, right? Can he get back to at least 70 points this season? I don't know if he can, and the reason being is because he is definitely a pass first type of player. He's like a McDavid, but obviously not as good as McDavid, right? But he's your typical 15 points, 55 or 15 goals, 55 assists, right? And so if he can do that and get to the 70 points, JT, I'll have you check on his point total. But I just don't really see who he's going to distribute to. Nazem Kadri, okay. I believe Mangiapane's actually moved on, right? I think he's a
Yeah.
Capital now. Blake Coleman, which I like Blake Coleman as game, but he's more of a banger's beauty. You got a young guy like Connor Zary as well. Is he really ready to kind of take that? This team's very, very, very vanilla. So can Huberdeau actually do it per his talent? Yes. Does he have the people around him to actually get him to that 70 points? I don't think so. This is not a good team. It's not a good team at all. Their best fantasy piece is Mackenzie Weegar. And man, he's going to get you 200 hits, 200 shots, and 200 blocks. There's not many people in the league that can actually do that and say they actually do that. 200, 200, 200, man. That I think, JT, you mentioned it in our Dynasty League for our Ultra Bangers League.
Yep.
Uyghur was either number one or maybe number two,
He
right
was
behind
number-
Darlene.
He was number one. He just barely outscored Darlene for number one in our league in scoring, which was where you ended up getting drafted in our league was pretty stellar where they got him, because again, a guy you're not relying on scoring points, assists or goals are any week, but still putting up points every night for you. He ended up just barely beating out Darlene for number one overall defenseman scoring in our league.
Yeah,
And he was top 15 overall in the league in scoring.
This is not a good team at all. And their brightest spot is a guy who's not actually going to see the NHL this year, and he shouldn't see the NHL this year. And that is Matthew Coronado. And Coronado is actually a highly rated forward. And again, I kind of like going to Dauber and actually just reading a write up here, but fantasy upside, he has an 8.5 out of 10. NHL certainty a 9 out of 10. These are very, very high numbers. Very, very high numbers. His summary is an offensively gifted winger with good instincts and heavy shot, decent speed, but needs to add quickness to his overall game in order to make the most of his abilities at NHL level. So they believe he's going to be an NHLer, but does he actually just have those gifted talent to just wow you? It doesn't sound like it, but it sounds like, again, good instincts and a heavy shot, a good player on a good team. And that's why he won't actually see any AHL time this year. In my opinion, you should not the fact that he needs a good team around him to actually be fairly good. He was the 13th overall selection in the 2021 entry draft. That's the best thing they actually have going for them as well. This is not a team with a deep farm system as well. So they didn't have not a whole lot going for them. When Jonathan Huberdeau is on the third line, that goes to show you what's actually going on. JT, tell me what they actually have for the over-under points. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to predict
pulling this up.
80, 79 and a half.
So pulling it up right now, last year in Florida in 2021, he had 30 goals and 85 assists, 115 points was by far his best year. I mean, by
Look at the
far.
players he had around him.
He only had one other year that he even got over 80 points. And that was 3 years before that. Was the only other year he was over 80 points. The last 2 years in Calgary, 15 goals, 40 assists, 12 goals, 40 assists, 55 and 52 points the last 2 years for him. Him right now sitting on FanDuel to go over 20 goals, which he has not reached, is plus 250. That one's looking very ugly. 60 plus points is minus 135, which he has not done in 3 years. And now he's on a bad team. I absolutely hate that bet. If I could take the under, I would take the under on that. Right now, they just have a 60 plus, 50 plus, 80 plus. Their 50 plus is minus 380. And for a guy that's barely got there the last 2 years, that seems like a terrible bet.
Yeah, pretty bad. And I would imagine, JT, I would think the Calgary points as a team is probably right around 79.5. And if I'm saying I'm taking the under.
You're right there. It's 81.5 right now. Under's minus 120. The over's minus 106. I'm all over the under. Worst record in the league. If everything hit the fan, plus 1,500 for them to get the worst record. So they're about eighth, seventh or eighth on the list. So that's a little bit of a long shot bet. Put it out there. We got Out of Rhythm back with a couple more questions. Let's throw these up for you guys right here. So he says, is there any trade calculators out there that are decent to check on player values? Toast, I don't know any for hockey. Are you aware of any player value hockey wise?
There may be out there. I'm not aware of them, and I've actually scoured internet for this about anything hockey, fantasy hockey related. I've never come across anything like that.
I haven't seen any either. I've actually, the only one I've even come across, or there's a couple football ones. I've not even seen ones for other sports out there on that. So that one's a toughie. There. Next question from him. He says, which position do you value more in your draft? Centers, wingmen, defensemen? I only know names from previous years before. Helpful insight on that. Toast, why don't you give us the insight? Kind of, we've talked about this a little bit in the past, kind of when we go into these things. Talk about the difference a little bit before who you're kind of eyeing here between centers, wingmen, and the defensemen, and kind of where you go after those guys.
It comes down to scoring format. So Out of Rhythm, I'll actually, just go back and say, hey, what value do defensemen actually have in your format? And also, I think you said before it's a points league as well. So it's not a categories league; it's more of a points league. That even makes it more reason to actually go centers and wingmen. Traditionally, you can maybe wait on centers, and the reason when I say wait on centers, of course, if you're picking 1-1, 1-2, 1-3, whatever, you're going to go with those traditional guys, right? But we're talking about the second, third, and fourth rounds. The right wing traditionally, and I think it's swinging a little bit more where it's becoming a little bit more even between left wing and right wing, but the right wings are traditionally a little bit more thin than the left wings. So I would definitely value wingers more early on in drafts, because you actually want to get those, again, positions that are maybe not as deep, and they also shoot the puck a ton. But then once you get to round maybe 5, 6, 7, jump back into those centers, right? Because they're a deep position. They drive play. They're always touching the puck. So that's my philosophy, is go ahead and maybe come out of the gate, again, minus the first round, because you're just getting best players. But second round through fourth, fifth round, you're getting wingmen. And then once you get in the fifth, sixth, seventh rounds, you can go centers. And you might be able to sneak in a defenseman, but you got to really watch your scoring. Who knows how defenseman actually the scoring is. If it ends up being where defensemen don't really count hits, blocks, PIMs, all of that stuff to a great degree, there's only a handful of defensemen that actually scored a very high level in this league, goals and assists. And odds are, by the time you end up wanting to draft them, fifth, sixth round, they're going to be gone because somebody actually overvalued them and actually picked them way too early. So it's not a perfect formula, but that's my thought on that.
Yeah, and I was going to say, depending on what league you play in and what format, if you play on Fantrax, which we do, we moved our league to Fantrax a couple of years ago just because it had such good options as far as just scoring, adjusting what you could do with the roster spots, everything like that. If you go in and you look at your draft before your draft and you hit points per game projected, but you also can hit points per game for the year before, it will show you where those guys scored in your league. So you can look at some of those defensive guys. If those defensive guys are scoring, your top defensive guys are like 25, 30, 35th, 40th in your league in scoring, and none of those guys are in the top 20, then you need to probably avoid defensemen for a while because they're just not going to score a lot for you. And like Toast said, you're most likely going to have to overdraft those guys. But if you're in a bangers league like our league is, and we give really good points for hits, blocks, penalty minutes, now you will see some of those defensemen go second, third, fourth round because you can see those guys. They're scoring top 10 points, top 15, top 20 points in our league. So I think that's definitely something I always tell people to do and suggest. If your format allows you to do that and go in and hit like what you saw last year scoring wise, and you can kind of take some notes and then hit what they're projected this year and kind of find that even ground, middle ground between what they're projected and what they scored last year. I think that definitely kind of tells you where some of those high scoring players are going to go and kind of where to maybe take them. And like Toe said, we in our league, we play forward league most of the time. So we're not worried about right, left, wings, centers. But if you are in those leagues, you need to be aware because some of those positions dry up a little faster than other positions. So you might actually have to go and maybe grab a right winger a little bit earlier than you want because there are more centers or more left wingers available later in the draft.
Hey, Aaron, I'll ask you. And I know we're over time, JT, but I know we had some technical difficulties and everything else. Aaron, would you say that the perfect formula, given the event that you have traditional scoring for defensemen, would be is you come out again, depending on where you draft, right? Because you could draft first or second or third, you could draft 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th, right? So that matters to a great degree. But if you could actually come out with a winger in the first round, come back with a really, really solid defenseman, center in the second round, and then actually then come back with a defenseman in the third, you are technically getting a top 5 player at each one of the positions likely in your first 3 rounds. That is a safe play in the event that the scoring for defenseman is where it should be. That's the outlier. But if you could do that, go winger, center, defenseman, that is a nice route to actually go in most leagues. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, it's kind of back in the day. I liken it to football. Again, again, depending on your scoring format, you just take the best position available. I got my QB, my running back, my wideout. The three-headed monster, whatever. So I like that. And I'll say this too. Teams, real life NHL teams, they build their teams around defense and a center. Everybody's got a real good 1A center. There's a lot more centers in the league than there are elite scoring wings. Now obviously there's physically more wings out there than centers because you get, only so many per team. But I'd say that those are how real teams are built. So that leads me again. I go back to that scarcity. So if you're in a league that has left wing, right wing designated, like JT said, I'd go right wing because that's your most scarce position. I would really take a look at that positionally, depending on where you draft. But yeah, if I'm out there, I have that kind of mid pick, and I can maybe pick from the top. If I can stay in the top 1 to 2 tiers in those positions, then I probably would do something like that, where I go center wing defenseman.
Oh, yeah, he jumped in and he said mostly standard scoring in a Yahoo league. Goalies 5 points for a win. Goals are 6, assists are 4, plus minus is 1. So they kind of amped up with the goals at 6 and assists at 4. So it sounds like it's a high scoring league. So if you're going that direction, where would you guys kind of be at? Where we're almost going double the scoring for goals and assists as you would kind of normal league, and then obviously. We've talked about this in the past with goalies. If you're doing a league that's high goalie win points, then you want the guys on one of the 4 or 5 best teams in the league. And those are the goalies you want. Those guys are going to play like 60 to 70% of the games. And you want those guys that are definitely getting wins if that's the most important thing for a goalie when it comes to scoring.
I would go draft Skinner in the 10th round and then go all wings. Don't even bother with defensemen with that scoring format. All forwards, all centers and forwards. Forget defensemen. Take Skinner at the very end, and that's your goalie with those points.
Aaron couldn't have said it better. Go get guys that actually shoot the puck a ton, that actually score and just load up on forwards. And then if your league, let's say your league does have 0.25 points for a hit and 0.25 for a block, then actually just go ahead and just get some bruisers near the end. Get your Gudises, actually get your Lawsons, get those guys just to kind of, again, get you on average 3.5 points per game on your average scoring for a defenseman. Just some guys that aren't going to shit the bed and get nothing, but they're never going to light it up and just load up on forwards. That's exactly what I would do.
All right. We appreciate the questions. Keep them coming in the last little bit of the show here, guys. We got about 15 minutes left in the show. We got 2 teams left to hit up. We got the Los Angeles Kings and the Seattle Kraken. Who we want to hit up next?
Hey, Aaron, let me do Seattle because I'm going to make it in 2 minutes, and then we can spend some time on the Kings. How about that? Seattle last year, 81 points, 6th place in the Pacific. They missed the playoffs. I have them, 5th place, missing the playoffs here. Probably going to get a top 15 pick. This is a middle of the line team. They got a good balance of youth and veterans in that room, but they're just really average fantasy value, in my opinion. And again, they're like a slightly above average hockey team for value as well. Matty Beniers actually came out of the gate in his career and was so unbelievably good. And he's just kind of really, I don't know if it's been bad luck. And I'm not going to get into the geek stats here. And I'm sure, tell me about Corsi and tell me about, shots per 60 and actually expected goal. All I know is basically he's not producing to the degree we actually expected him to do after he came out in his rookie season. So can Beniers actually bounce back? That's a big key question for me. I would assume he's going to be the top line center, top power play as well. Their best fantasy pieces is McCann. He's an annual 30 guy, 30 goals, 30 assists as well. Vince Dunn, he's only 27. He's lots of assists guy. I checked and he's got a ton of PIMs. He doesn't hit or block much, but you can get him in like an ADP of around 125 in most drafts. That's pretty good for a power play 1 quarterback as well. I have 0 bets on this team. Vanilla. I don't want to bet them. I have no interest in it. There's nothing. There's nothing here. The cupboard's empty when it comes to betting because I'm not going to want to watch the game anyway. And this is coming from an expansion team a couple years ago. Given the fact that they're an expansion team, they're good. They're in a great spot. Their hidden gem, Shane Wright. Shane Wright, again, he's one of the highly touted forwards in their pipeline. Mike, I don't really know, again, if Shane Wright's going to see any time on his team this year. I don't know. All I can tell you, again, Dauber's right up, and I love this right. You don't see a fantasy upside in NHL certainty at 9.5 per often. Highly skilled center that can do it all. Strong skater with great vision. Excellent shot. Intelligence to impact the game in all areas. A potential franchise cornerstone. What more do you actually need to know here? Shane Wright really is the play here in the event that you're actually doing a dynasty league. You should do all you can to actually get Shane Wright on your team. And if that actually means giving up the likes of a second line winger on an average to above average team right now, like let's say like a Jared McCann type of player, or heck, even a Brock Besser type of player, you're making that trade every single time. So you just don't get write-ups like that often. So definitely like Shane Wright, but that's about the only thing I really like about Seattle Kraken going on right now.
They got cool sweaters. I mean, I like the color
Oh,
schemes.
love and the fact that, you know what?
Picture on the TV.
Out of Rhythm said, "Don't bash Seattle too much. I'm wearing my cracky beanie tonight." And I just said that. I was like, they got great gear. Like,
dude, the merch is sick. I like it. Yeah.
when they came out with the Kraken name and the unis and the sweaters, man, I was like, hey, at least they crushed it. They absolutely murdered that. They've got great gear.
And JT, well, here's what I'll say about the Kraken. And again, not to crap on them the entire time. From a fantasy perspective, they're not sexy. Okay, they're not going to just fill up the stat sheet for you. But from a team perspective, yeah, given the fact that they've only been around, this would be the 3rd or 4th season, this is exactly where they should be. And they've actually had some success. And plus, I mean, hey, they have all of our commentators now, Aaron. I mean,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm
Well
really,
checked.
really with
Yeah.
Eddie O. You know, I'm like,
Yeah.
it's just like I don't like that. You know, like bring me back some Eddie O. But I understand that again. That was a decision where the Hawks probably, nevertheless, love me some Eddie O. But Seattle's in great hands. A good team. This is a good franchise. They're actually moving in a perfectly right direction. Just from a fantasy perspective, there's not a whole lot there for me.
Over under right now for Seattle's 86.5 points. The over is minus 122. The under minus 104.
Another reason, again, they're middle of the road. They're a good, solid franchise. They're up and coming. I wouldn't know what to bet that over under
It
because
feels like
that's
that's like
about where it
right,
should be.
kind of where it should be. I don't feel great either way about it because I feel like that's pretty right on, don't you, Aaron?
Yeah. Agree. Yeah, I was gonna say 90, but yeah, that's right with them.
Do,
Yeah.
do you guys think this team could sneak in the playoffs? Right now, the no is minus 186. The yes is plus 144. Is there? Do you think this team is just on the outside looking in?
I don't think so. I think you got your top four that'll do it, and if not, then you're looking at the Central for that wild card spot. I just don't see him as competing with the wild card or that fourth spot or that third spot, excuse me, for in the Pacific.
Yeah, and again, JT, if you look at their pieces, their defense core is really good, man. Vince Dunn, Brandon Montour as well, and you even got Stevenson as a second line center, actually coming from a winning franchise like Vegas, and actually there. Burakovsky has always come down to health again. He seems to always be banged up as well. Jaden Schwartz, Blues, man, whatever. We're gonna deal with that. But Shane Wright projected as a third line center. Jordan Eberle on there to actually help him out. So this is a solid lineup. This is a solid lineup balanced with very, very good young players and actually solid veterans, right where you want to be in what year 3 or 4 of a franchise. This is exactly where you want to be. And hell, you got Yanni Gord actually projected to be fourth line center with Brandon Tanev as well. And
I got a
Ellie
little Yanni on
Tolvanen as
the
well. So
fantasy team. I got a little
I
Yanni
I
late in the
like
draft. I think he was my last pick.
yeah, and Tolvanen as well. I like their fourth line. That's the check line, man. I tell you what, and all those guys have actually had their moment at one point or another. So this is a pretty solid 1-4 lineup. Just nothing sexy about it whatsoever. You don't have that superstar player. You just have a bunch of role players, and it's yet to be seen whether or not Matty Beniers could take that next step. He is the key, in my opinion.
All right, Aaron, what do we think? Let's bring in the Kings to bring it home here for the Pacific Division.
Yeah, I mean, kick it off with bad news with Doughty. Not sure how long he's out, but again, there's a whole debate going on NHL preseason, much like NFL preseason. The endless argument: should they do it? Should they not? Should they dial it back? Say what you will, but it's too bad to see a guy like that go down. What we assume will be a pretty good chunk of the season, if not the whole thing. So right then they're already thin on defense a little bit. So what I have, I'm going to kind of do this backwards. I've got the Kings. They're going to be in a dogfight for that wild card spot. I have them getting the wild card, but it'll be a dogfight between them, St. Louis, and Winnipeg. Are kind of our other teams here in the Western Conference. It'll be close. It'll be that game 82 type situation where somebody just barely makes it in. And I'm going to tip my hat to the Kings just because of the depth. They've kind of done the rolling rebuild, which is different than San Jose, different than Anaheim, where they've kind of aged. Obviously they've aged Kopitar, Doughty, but they've also kind of refilled, reloaded with some guys like Kempe. Well, they don't have him anymore. They actually lost Arvidsson, but Fiala brought him over. Trevor Moore's been great. It'll be interesting to see what Akil Thomas does, but I say above all that, to have Quentin Byfield, and Kevin Fiala on the same line should be interesting at that second line scoring. I think those two together, Byfield being that 200-foot game, two-way forward, pass first guy, feeding over to Fiala. Fiala does nothing but shoot. He's going to have all that he can handle with the passes coming from him. So I'm excited for that. Turcotte, a highly touted rookie, gets his crack at the lineup. Should crack the lineup. Not for sure on that, but got him on the fourth line because he got Philip Deneau, who a lot of people are talking about his shutdown capability. Like he's that third line shutdown kind of guy. So with that, like I said, the real questions are their thin defense, their goalie. They got Kemper. I forget the other guy. Who's the other guy
Riddick.
there? Riddick.
Yeah.
Both NHL journeymen. Nothing to talk about with these two guys. If you forgot to draft a goalie, maybe take a flyer on one of them, but to make sure you handcuff the other one. I'm not real thrilled. They didn't have, they did lose Arvidsson, which we talked about when we talked about Edmonton. Yeah, not a huge loss there, but again, I think they're going to be grinding out. All their games are going to be important. We'll know everything we need to know about LA in the first 15 games. If they have a decent start, I think they can maintain it and they can keep their head above water. They'll clip that fourth that wild card spot that I mentioned, but St. Louis and Winnipeg are going to be right there nipping at their heels. Yeah. I mean that's pretty much all I got on the Kings. I do have them getting in. Because I think there's enough. The rolling rebuild. Kopitar has kind of led the way, but he is passing that torch to Quentin Byfield, a highly touted number 2 overall pick.
Yeah, this was kind of the surprise team last year, right, guys? Like people kind of weren't ready for LA. They weren't sure like what they were going to be like, and then their goaltending was just phenomenal to start out the year. Got off to a great start, kind of cooled off down the stretch, but had a really solid year. But it was defense and goaltending that really kind of saved them. It's going to be interesting if the rest of those offensive guys, like you said, they've got some talented young guys. Can those guys take that next step? Right now, the over-under on them is 96.5 points. Over is -104. The under is -122. To make the playoffs, yes, is a -215. No is +164. To win the division, they're fourth at +550. So you guys think this team, they're right there. You guys say down on Vegas. Okay on them. They're only 3 points less than Vegas right now as far as overall team points going into the season.
It makes the Vegas bet on the under even better. I mean, so 96.5 is exactly where the Kings should be, and just given where their trajectory, again, the injury to Doughty is very untimely. I mean that's going to hurt, and they're going to have to rely on like Brant Clark, the highly touted defenseman, and they're young in the defense core. They're a fairly young team. They rely on Kempe. They rely on Fiala to do most of the scoring, and then after that, it's kind of like by committee. So they're not going to hurt you. The goaltending. Why it's not sexy. These guys are proven pros, and I believe Kemper being in this situation, and I think he came over at some point last year as well. I kind of like him in this position. So I definitely like the over 96.5, but the fact that Vegas is 99.5 just makes it that much more evident why you would bet the under on Vegas. Because I think in the end that the Kings are they're going to finish ahead of Vegas, and that's probably the reality of it.
All right, fellas, that is our Pacific Division breakdown. Any last thoughts before we head out for the evening?
Go ahead, Aaron.
Oh, I was just going to throw out a couple of sleepers here real quick. Again, we kind of touched on them. Victor Arvidsson going over to Edmonton. Just read an article, took a deep dive into Edmonton. Again, not just because I have the hat, but I feel invested in the team now. But he and Draisaitl are just absolutely clicking from what I'm hearing and what we've seen in the preseason so far. So watch for him. I'm not sure what his ADP is, but again, he's bottom. Usually he may be going a little bit later than what he may do. And again, remember Hyman last year, 50 goal scorer. out of nowhere, really, because he didn't do shit in Toronto. So these guys go to Edmonton and they kick it up a notch, playing with the talent there. Trevor Moore, out of the Kings that we just talked about, he's going average right now, mock drafts, real drafts. He's going in right around that 15 to 17 in a 10 person league. He's 15, 17 round guy, but he's most lists that you can find, at least every list that I found, he's in the top 100. So that's a little late for a top 100 guy. He's going a little bit later, but yeah, don't sleep on Trevor Moore. And then the last one's Joey Decord. He the goalie for Seattle. He'll get his minutes. Seattle's up and coming. If you're on a keeper league, might be your guy. You've already got the beanie. You've already invested on the merch for Seattle. Take the cord. That can be your goalie. Go crazy with the forwards in the first few rounds of your draft there, and then take the cord at the end and just sit on him. He'll get some minutes there. So those are the three sleepers I
got. And I'll just mention. I know we're up on time, JT, but I'll just mention here. This Jeremy Swayman contract negotiations are out of control.
Oh my God.
And yes. I don't know if you guys have been following it, but yes. Basically Cam Neely comes out and basically in a presser says that Neely actually, or that Swayman should have 64 million reasons to go ahead and sign his contract. Again, you're 8 for 8, like we actually always see these young guys actually take. And now Swayman's camp's coming out and through his agent posted something on X and basically saying they never offered us that. Rumor actually has it that basically they've offered, this 64, and that they're actually looking and then really they're saying that that's what they're kind of looking for, and they're actually claiming that Boston's only offered like 61, which if you look at it, a $3 million difference in 8 years, it's a pissing contest at this point. It's something that's really, really ugly, something that should have never happened. I think that both sides actually look at that. They'd be like, how the hell did we get here? Like, how did we get here? And they need Swayman. They need Swayman. This Boston team actually has to have him. So if this doesn't get done, man, and I assume it probably will, but there's some bad blood going on right now. This is definitely a surprise coming from a Boston team who really prides themselves on having really, really good contracts and good negotiations.
Yeah, and if you guys are looking to put in some early bets before the season gets started on Tuesday, remember, check us out Tuesday night. We'll be back, live edition, season kickoff for the NHL. We're going to be watching games, talking hockey, a little bit of different show than we normally do, but definitely check us out. But if you want to get something in the Prague games, if you are on FanDuel, they do have a Prague special where they have a bunch of different bets that are specifically designed just for the 2 games there in Prague. So if you're looking to get a little action early,
I'll get on it.
Jump in there. We've got a few. We won't run them all down because there's quite a few on there, but we'll talk about them off the air. We might throw some on our X page. If you want to take a look at that, you can always follow me at JT Orange, Toast at Toast Clark, and Aaron at Titch411. And also, in case you're new to us, the Toast Takes will be coming out this season. Toast puts out his favorite bets almost daily, at least a couple times a week, depending on how busy the schedule gets and what we like. But those will be coming out, so make sure to keep an eye out for Toast Takes. Thanks, everybody. It's here, boys. Hockey season is upon us. We're pumped. We're hoping you guys are pumped. Make sure to check us out every Tuesday night here on Fantasy of Frames for Around the Ice. Thanks for joining us tonight. We'll check you guys next time.